All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Be That Guy podcast. My name is DJ Liguori, and this is a follow-up episode today to the recent episode that we released a couple weeks ago with my good friend Abby Hammock. That was episode number 186, and absolutely incredible conversation. I've had multiple people reach out to me and say that, one, they really enjoyed the conversation that I had with Abby, and two, they learned a ton about the masculine versus the feminine energy, which I'm gonna hit on a little bit today because I think it is something that is super, super important that I think a lot of guys feel weird about, and we don't even really know how to drop into the feminine energy. And I think once we understand just how important it is when it comes to building relationships and communication, I think it can be a complete game changer. And so Abby did a phenomenal job explaining the differences between the two energies, and it was just a great conversation that I think more people need to listen to, especially in today's day and age when we are getting confused about what it means to be a woman versus a man. And it's okay to have these different traits or these different you could say directions if I am a man or if I am a woman, and it's okay to like drop into those things and be good at those things. And so we had this really good conversation that I highly recommend. If you haven't done so, go back, listen to that episode. It was just packed with a lot of really good things, a lot of things that I'm already kind of starting to think more about in my life today. And so today what I wanted to do is I wanted to hit on three things that I talked about with Abby. And the first is this idea of a wounded masculine energy, which I think is really interesting. I'd never heard of that term before, and then once Abby explained it, made much more sense to me. Second thing I want to hit on is the balancing or the integration of both the masculine and the feminine energy. Then the last thing is on confidence. And I want the angle of today's episode to be, if you're a dude between the ages of 15 to 35 and you're listening to this, I actually checked our Spotify statistics, and typically it's guys between the ages of actually 25 and 34 who are listening to this type of stuff, this podcast. And so I want you guys to think about, as I go through this episode today, like, why would this be valuable for you to even know and for you to even try to incorporate into your life? Because I'm gonna do my best to give you the angle of why this is going to separate you from every other guy if you try to just be aware of the feminine versus the masculine energy, or what being a really confident man looks like today. And I want to try and talk about this in the most masculine way that I can, yet I think it requires us to be a little open-minded when it comes to what are women looking for? How am I going to tap more into my true authentic self and actually enjoy who I am a little bit more? I think that's something that I'm noticing a lot of guys are struggling with, is they actually don't appreciate who they are. And I think that comes from one of the things that I'm going to talk about today when it comes to building confidence. I'll save it till I actually get to that section. But those are the three things I want to hit on: wounded masculinity, the balancing of the two energies, and true confidence. And so the first thing that I want to hit on is this wounded masculine. And this is a quote directly from the podcast with Abby. She said, "Someone that is operating in wounded masculine energy does not have the capacity to take on anyone else's emotions because they've buried their own for so long." Now, what is wounded masculine energy? I personally think that this wounded masculine energy thing is a call for help. It's a very blunt call for help where I have to flex the money that I have to flex the status that I might have or the power that I might have, because I am not good enough as is. There are emotions I've buried, there are moments of my life that I haven't fully worked through, and in order for me to feel good and to feel strong, I have to make sure that I look really put together on the outside so that I can get validation from everybody else. Now, what are examples of this, right? So I wrote down a couple of these. The guy who shuts down emotionally when something hard happens, right? Now think about this. If this guy has actually gone through some shit and something hard happens, it might like trigger one of those emotions, right? So he doesn't want to actually look at the hard thing, and because of that, he then starts to retreat, right? This could actually be having a hard conversation with his spouse. This could be something hard at work. This could be something hard personally, right? One of the things that I'm going to talk about once we get to the confidence piece is the art of doing hard things. It's the hard things in life that are actually going to make us into a better man. And sometimes the emotions are the actual hard thing, right? So like if we talk about toughness and grit and resilience, it's like, oh yeah, it's getting through hard shit. It's doing hard things. Well, talking about your emotions is kind of hard sometimes too, right? And yes, that feels icky if you're a dude and it feels weird and soft, yet isn't it hard? Like if we define resilience and toughness as getting through hard things, then if I'm able to try and articulate what I'm experiencing, remember experiencing versus feeling, guys might be a little bit more apt to that. If I can articulate what I'm experiencing in the best way that I can, am I trying to actually get through that hard thing, right? Kind of changing the way that we look at it. Second thing I wrote down, the guy who makes everything a competition, right? He has to win at everything because losing to him would damage his ego so bad that he wouldn't be able to deal with himself anymore, all right? The guy who needs to control every environment he's in. He always needs to be the center of attention. He always needs to have the good joke. If anybody ever comes at him, he gets super defensive and he gets super mad. I know guys like this. And frankly, it's very easy to beat them. It's very easy to get them emotionally unstable because you know that if you make one joke or if you say one thing or if you mention one comment, boom, off the rails, they're gone. You won. And so think about that if you're a dude and you walk into a bar, you walk into a social setting and you might be in this wounded masculine type of thing and you have to make sure that everybody thinks that you're the man. Just realize that the guys who are emotionally intelligent and a little bit more emotionally mature and that authentic and confident self, which I know some of those guys, they'll beat you 10 times out of 10 because they don't care about the result. They don't care about being looked at as powerful and status driven and look at how great I am because they're already enough. They're already good. You actually can't beat them. And so that strategy and that type of awareness is what will separate the wounded masculine guys from the guys who are truly confident and truly good with who they are. And, you know, I hate to say this, but those are the guys who are going to get the women 100% too, because the women can sense that without a doubt. All right. I mean, go listen to Abby's podcast. She literally talks about how you can sense the wounded masculine energy and what it looks like and what it feels like. I think women have that sense. And then the last thing I wrote down was the guy who says who never says I'm hurt or I need help. I've talked very religiously about how when I was in my early 20s, I actually told a basketball coach that I was very close with, I needed help. And because I literally said I needed help to him, it birthed a 3-year coaching relationship, which then created Acres of Diamonds, which then created the Be That Guy coaching program. So I actually would not be talking to you right now if I never said I needed help. And so a lot of the guys that we work with, they're very reluctant to say that initially. And I think most guys are, because when we say I need help, we're going against how we're biologically wired and we are not protecting or we're not providing at that moment. Yet what if us actually saying, hey, I could use some help is what can get us to the point to protect and provide better than we ever have been able to in our lives. And so sometimes I think we need to slow down in order to actually go a little bit faster, right? Slowing down by saying, hey, you know, I could actually use some help with my business, or I could actually use some help with my self-development or my fitness or my nutrition or my relationship, and actually slowing this thing down in order to actually make it go way faster in the coming months, possibly years moving forward into the future. And so those guys who never say that, they're just gonna kind of slowly putter along, and it actually will probably just continue to increase their stress and anxiety that they're not good enough, that they're going to need to make more money and have more status and have more power, and it'll actually just spiral them even farther away from where they could be, that can help them with their emotional intelligence and this wounded masculinity thing. And so I wrote down, why does this matter? I said, if you're a dude thinking, well, why do I need to have the capacity to take on other emotions? Here's what I ended up writing down. I said, you'll never be able to lead a family. You'll never be able to lead a team. And you'll never be able to be in a healthy, supportive relationship if you cannot handle emotional weight, yours or others. And here's why. Darren Hardy, who I've talked about a lot, is one of my mentors. He told me once, he said, every human being is exactly the same when it comes to emotions, right? Unless you have some disease where you don't feel emotions. I don't know if that is, if that's a real thing, that's wild. We are emotional beings that think. We are not thinking beings that have emotions. So every single human, man, woman, whatever you want to call yourself these days, has emotions. Emotion is energy in motion, okay? If we cannot get better at understanding those to the best of our abilities by actually putting in the work and actually doing the hard things, then we will never be able to truly connect with another person. And I don't think we're even going to be able to connect with ourselves either. Now, why is that important? Well, do you want to ever have a family? Do you want to ever be able to lead a business team? Do you want to ever be in a relationship that's really great, that you really love, that's really healthy? Everybody talks about toxic relationships like it's this fun thing to talk about. Is that really what we're trying to do? Right? Is toxic the new sexy? Personally, I say no. I would rather be in a relationship with somebody who makes me a better man, who calls me out of my shit, who pushes me to be even more ambitious and think even bigger with my goals, and supports me when I need it, when I need them to be there for me. And I want to do those exact same things to the person that I'm with. So that's why this is so important, because it comes down to connection, right? Our emotions are a connective adhesive, right? And if we can't understand or at least articulate them or at least be willing to talk about them, then I think we're never going to fully get those connections that we desire with other people. And then the second thing I wrote down is strength isn't about bottling it up. It's about having the capacity to carry it well. I once saw this thing where it said positive people don't still experience like negative times and negative emotions. They just try to carry it better. Right? We actually are open to talking about it. We're actually open to looking at it, even if it's kind of scary. I was literally at I was in Las Vegas a couple months ago receiving an award actually for our Be That Guy program. And I was walking around some of the vendor sessions, and there was this guy who said that he could like relieve all of my negative emotions and limiting beliefs in like an instant. And I was like, bullshit, dude. Those have been cultivated, handcrafted over 29 years of my life. I said, there's no way you can do that. And so he started doing his thing to me. It was actually cellular energy, I believe was his angle. And he asked me, what's the biggest problem or the biggest limiting belief? And boom, I told it to him right there. I said, I think I'm weak. And that's what I've shared multiple times publicly. That's one of the hard things that I've had to overcome when I was in the classes in second grade, when I broke my elbow, when I lost my job. This was the limiting belief that I just accidentally created, and it doesn't make me feel good. And so I just told it to him right there. And he was kind of like, okay, wow, like let's go into this, right? Now, did it work? No, still I'm doing much better with that belief. I'm turning down the volume on that belief. Yet I think strength is about actually being able to talk about that. I think strength is actually being able to communicate. Here's the thing that I'm struggling with. Here's the thing that I could use your help with. And Simon Sinek often talks about how if your friend asks you how you're doing and you lie to them and say, yeah, I'm doing fine, he says you rob your friend of having the opportunity to help you. Like, how dare you do that? And so I've actually thought more about that with a couple of the people who I really trust in my life to say like, hey, I could actually use your help just maybe sitting with me, right? And Simon Sinek also says, hey, just sitting in the mud, right? Maybe just sit with me, just like, can I just talk through some things with you? And I've been doing a lot better with that of actually asking that person to do so. And they're always there. They're always like, yes, like I'm in, right? Because people like to help other people. Right? So allow your friends or those close people who you trust to actually be there for you and help you during the times that you actually really need somebody. All right. So that is the wounded masculine. Part 2, masculine and feminine energy. Ooh, what guy wants any feminine energy? All right. So masculine and feminine energy are not about gender. They're about the energy you bring to any moment. And so I believe that this is more of like a spectrum. It's about understanding what energy is required in this moment for me to get what I want. And I'll tell you a quick story. I played college football and I was the captain of my college football team. And my senior year, we had this really big game. I think it was like the 4th game of our season. We were 3-0, and the team that we were playing was they were Cortland, SUNY Cortland. They were 3-0 as well. Cortland was ranked, I think, 9 in the nation at that time, and everybody said that we were going to get our absolute teeth kicked in. And I remember that week, I had people coming up to me in school because our football team was really good and it was a very popular thing of the school. I had people coming up to me in the school and they were like, that's going to be a pretty hard game, isn't it? Like, they're really good. And frankly, it was starting to piss me off. It was starting to piss me off because people were totally disregarding like how good we were. And I just was like, yeah, they're pretty good. I was like, but we're gonna come in and we're gonna do the best we can. And before that game, I got fucking pissed. I was kind of like, fuck these guys. I said, I want to go in there and I want to kick their teeth in. And I told that to the whole team. And I remember getting in front of the team, and I've talked a lot about how I did get emotional in front of these guys a lot. This was the Friday session. I probably had a little bit of emotions coming up as I did. That was important to me. Yet this was right before we were about to go onto the field. And I literally asked like the coaches to leave, and I just fucking lost my shit. And I dropped as hard as I could into the masculine energy, and the guys went nuts. And I was pushing guys, and we were bloodthirsty at that point. We went out on the field and we beat those guys, and we ended up becoming the 10th ranked team in the nation, and we had a huge party that night, and it was awesome. And so that was me exercising my masculine energy. I knew that in that moment, I needed to get into my masculine energy as hard as I could. And any feminine energy in that moment probably wouldn't have gotten me the result that I wanted to get, which was to win the football game. Now, another moment of my life, when I'm coaching guys one-on-one or when we're in group sessions, a lot of the times we're talking about the things that they're actually struggling with. And we're talking about the obstacles that they're trying to navigate or figure out, whether it's family related, school related, job related, or personal related. And so when those conversations come up, I immediately drop into my feminine energy. I'm here to listen. I'm here to be for you. I'm here to be there for you, not to be for you. I'm here to be there for you. I'm here to listen to you, right? Because sometimes, and frankly, I think this is a majority of the time, we actually just need somebody to be there, to just listen to us, to make us feel seen, heard, and understood. And if we can do that for somebody else, that's a beautiful gift that we're giving them. And so when I'm in those sessions, I drop much more into the feminine energy. And I would say those sessions are much more 80% feminine, 20% masculine. Whereas being a captain of a football team was probably more like 90% masculine and 10% feminine. And so, which sounds wild, right? Yet the 10% feminine of being a really good leader on a football team is when your buddy and his girlfriend break up, you text him, say, hey, how you doing, man? Hey, if you want to, grab a drink or something, whatever, just let me know, bro. I'm immediately caring for that guy. I'm immediately nurturing him, right? I want to be there for him. And that's what I think good leaders do, right? They're aware of the guys who they have been honored to lead. And so that's where I think this is a spectrum, right? It's understanding in this moment, what is the energy that is going to get me what I want? In those coaching sessions, my goal is to help these guys raise their self-awareness so they can find more of what works in their lives. That doesn't require me always being this super masculine energy guy. It requires much more feminine energy. And knowing when to do that is the second thing that I kind of want to hit on. Is it's intelligence-based. I think that guys who are aware of how they need to act in a given moment, I think that shows me how smart they are, right? Because if I went into that locker room and I was like, hey guys, got a big football game today, and you know what? I really care. That's a completely different energy. And versus the guys when I go into the coaching session, I say, dude, I think you're being a total pansy right now. I think you need to do this, do that, and then I want you to report back. Much more masculine energy. That's a lack of intelligence. That's a lack of intelligence of not knowing what energy is going to help me get what I want in this situation. What type of thinking do I need to apply to this moment? And that's where I think we really start to separate ourselves. Right? Because, if you think about it, do you want your friends to be dumb? Do you want your romantic partners to be dumb? No, we want to be around smart people. We like smart people. You want to know why? Because it's a reflection of us. We don't want to feel dumb. I've been very, very verbal about the things I've struggled with when it came to my intelligence. The reason that I've gone so freaking hard into all this is because it makes me feel smart. And it makes me feel smart when I listen to certain things and then I say certain things, and then people say, wow, you're very emotionally intelligent. And frankly, I know. because I put in hours and hours and years into actually studying this and trying to actually put it into practice. And so I think when it comes to the guys who are willing to understand or look at what's the energy I need to bring to this situation right now, especially in a relationship, right? Especially when there might be some conflict, right? Maybe we drop into a little bit more of that feminine energy and we say, hey, I'm here to listen, right? Tell me what we need to do collectively to make this work. So one of the things that I often say is, I did the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast for 4 years. And I talked about how, libraries are more of the feminine energy, right? I go there and I read a book, or I write some notes, right? Do some homework. It's a little bit more feminine energy. A weight room is a little bit more masculine energy. Obviously, because you go in there and you start throwing some weights around. Now, one of the things that I've talked a lot about is this integration of the hard and soft skills of life. Well, if you think about libraries and weight rooms, that's an integration of the soft skills of the library and the hard skills of the weight room. We also have sayings like Renaissance Alpha, Carhartts in tuxedos, choir boy gangsters. This is something that Scott Gibbs, who's the co-founder of Acres of Diamonds, my business partner, taught us when he was my basketball coach. He said, I want us to walk onto the court like a bunch of choir boys. Look professional, have some sportsmanship, say hello, be kind, be good teammates. And then once we get onto the court and we're playing the game, we play like gangsters. We beat the shit out of these guys. We box them out into the first stands, put them in their parents' lap, and then we pick them up with a smile. Imagine what that does to your opponent's psychology. Oh my God, that guy just beat the living crap out of me and then he picked me up. Right? That's gonna really twist some heads there. All right, so those are some metaphors that I like to use when it comes to this integration of the hard and soft skills of life, or the balancing of the masculine versus the feminine energy. And so I wrote down here that the goal is not to live only in one energy, but to have the awareness and the intelligence to know what's needed in a moment and deliver it. And so if you're a guy, right, thinking, all right, so what do I get by balancing both of these energies? I believe that you become someone that others can trust. And I also think that you also start to develop more trust within yourselves, because you start to be more honest. You start to be a little bit more authentic, and you start to think deeper into, how am I behaving in this moment? That could be viewed as good, or that could be viewed as bad. Second thing I wrote down, you stop getting stuck in just anger or apathy, right? I think you start to balance, right? You start to find more of what works. You start to test different things. I think you start to get a little bit more curious, which is a feminine quality. Right? Not just a guy saying, hey, yes, I know this. Instead going, well, what if I didn't know this? Right? What could I be missing? Imagine what that might do to your relationship. And then the last thing, you become more magnetic. People feel safe and led by you. Right? When you're, and I think this really boils back to this intelligence piece. I think when we're around people who are intelligent, and not in a cocky and arrogant way, in a deep, respectful way, I think we naturally are drawn to those people, right? And here's a great example. I've shared, I can't remember if I shared this in a podcast or on an email, but I went to Guatemala a couple months ago for a retreat. It was fantastic. And I met this guy who was an older guy, and he had the most calmest, confident energy I'd ever met in my life. He walked at the pace that he wanted to walk at. He ate the food that he wanted to eat, and people were drawn to him. He just kind of lived his life the way he wanted to. And in some moments, we had some really intense conversations about masculinity, about grit, about toughness. And then in some instances, we talked about the pain we had worked through. We talked about the limiting beliefs we had. We might even, I think we shedded a couple tears together, and we hugged each other. And I said, that to me is beautiful. The ability to go all the way to the right side of masculine, tough, grit, resilience, discipline, to all the way to the left side of caring, loving, sharing, curiosity, feminine. And so I think that magnetic feel comes when we can actually figure out how to balance that and integrate both of them. So that's what I think about kind of like the masculine versus the feminine energy. And so, all right, last part is on confidence. All right. By the way, all of this, like I said, go check out Abby's podcast. She talks so good about all of this. This is me just kind of giving my 2 cents on it. But confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, it's earned, and it comes from doing the hard things over and over again. At the end of the podcast, I asked Abby and this is something that I ask everybody, right? What can guys do to be that guy? And she talked about do the hard things. Right now, I think, and I talk about this in the podcast, I think we're in an effort crisis. I think we've just lost the ability to give effort because technology has made things so convenient. And so if I want to make a burrito and go to the grocery store and buy ground beef, cheese, rice, and a tortilla, and then come back and make that burrito, there's some effort required with that. There's zero effort with me sitting on my couch and hitting order and Chipotle brings it to me in 20 minutes. Now you might say, well, isn't that great? It is great. It's kind of awesome. Yet that has now become the new standard. So there are things in our life though that still would require effort. Nobody's gonna go to the gym and give you a six pack. Nobody's gonna give you confidence. Nobody's going to give you discipline or accountability or toughness. You have to go build those things, and those things require effort. And so when Abby said, what's the number one thing that a guy can do to be that guy? If you are doing hard things, it shows that you are willing to give effort towards things. Now, if a woman sees you giving effort towards things, is it possible that she can associate that effort with the effort that you might put into the relationship with her? Right? Can we see how effort is so important? Right? We want somebody to give effort. Well, at the same time, we also have to give effort. Right? This is a two-way street here. And so what does confident behavior look like? Speaking up even if you might be wrong, right? Saying what you think is the right thing to say in that moment, even if it might be wrong. Making the hard phone call or sending the hard text. Following through on your word. This is something that I'm actually going to hit on a lot in the next section. And saying I was wrong. I got a cool story to tell about this. So a couple weekends ago, I went to this cool dating event, and I've shared in a lot of podcasts about this really, really cool event. If you're in St. Pete or Tampa or Clearwater, Sarasota, frankly, anywhere kind of in Florida, I would highly recommend checking out the Meet in the Wild dating events. They're really cool, very well organized, and it's just a great time to meet some guys, meet some women. Really cool event. And so I went to this event and I was talking to this one woman, and I sat down and I said, let's share something super unique about each other and that we haven't told anybody yet. And so this young woman told me that she was into jujitsu. It was awesome. I had so many questions about it, and time was actually running out. And she was like, well, what's your thing? And I had no idea what I was going to say. And I sat there and I said, I'm okay with apologizing. And I can't even tell you, she kind of sat back and was like, oh my God. It's like, where are all the guys who would say that? And I thought to myself, I'm very comfortable if I did something wrong or said something that I kind of realized, I probably shouldn't have done that. I'm completely comfortable being that was my bad, right? I would like to do better. Here's what I've learned, right? Here's the adjustments I'm going to make. And so apologizing, we have a whole section in the podcast with Abby on apologizing. And what that does is it shows that you're willing to change and you're willing to learn and adopt what Abby called a growth mindset, right? Not a fixed mindset. I'm right. Here's yes, here's no. A growth mindset is, well, how could I be more curious? And I think that is a hard thing to do, right? It's kind of similar to talking about your emotions or what you're experiencing. These things are hard. And if we associate toughness with doing hard things, then isn't that technically a tough, resilient thing to do is apologize, right? So something to consider if you want to start kind of dropping into this new version of you. What shows a lack of confidence? Being passive in conversations, only doing what's comfortable. Junk food, Netflix, doom scrolling, video gaming, staying sedentary all day, not moving, not going out and actually talking to women and just scrolling on Hinge and messaging all of them. Right? These are the things where I think the convenience of life has kind of killed us a little bit, and it's made us these undisciplined, lack of priorities to the healthy and smart stuff humans or guys, where it's there's so much more that we can do and it requires effort. And I think only doing what's comfortable shows that you're not confident enough to go do the hard thing, right? And that's where I think it comes down to self-belief and self-image, and that's a whole other kind of can of worms that we can jump into. But always needing validation from others and hiding behind sarcasm or silence. And so the validation from others is really about social media, right? And it's really about that wounded masculinity that we talked in the beginning, where it's we try to make sure that everybody else appreciates who we are instead of us just appreciating who we are in the beginning, because the right people will sense that and the right people will love that and be attracted to that. And so how do you build real confidence? Well, I personally believe that confidence comes from evidence. And so if you have enough evidence in one thing, I think that's how you can become more confident with it. Now, courage, I believe, is doing the thing without evidence. And so I believe that if you really lock in your habits, and so your daily habits, right? What are the things that you're doing every day that are actually going to make you a more confident man? And so this is the one thing that I have found young men are starving for. Over the past 2 weeks, I have had almost 600 guys message me. Almost 600 guys reach out to me and say, hey, I want to improve my discipline, I want to improve my consistency, and I want to improve my confidence. I say, great. And so I ask them kind of what are the things that they want to really work on. And the number one things that these guys really want to work on is they want to be more disciplined young men, which essentially to me means they want to have more self-control, they want to do hard things, and they want to actually figure out like how to follow through with them. And so part of the last year, I've been testing a program where we actually track habits that we're doing on a daily basis. And if you follow me on Instagram at DJ Ligory, Logory, you will see that every month I post my habit tracker publicly so that I have public accountability to the things that I'm tracking. And I actually show you, here are all the things that I'm tracking every day. Now, why do I do these? Do this because I believe that if I set a goal to build a personal brand, to build a professional business, to have a certain body, to have a certain relationship, to build a certain community, that requires me to do daily habits each day. And in the post, I'll say, I'm not smart enough to remember to do these, so I've created a system to actually track them. Now, here's what happens. If I start tracking 2, 3, 4 habits a day for 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 6 months, and you look back on all of the evidence that you've built, that you said, I was gonna do this thing and I was gonna follow through with it. What was one of the things that, what does confident behavior look like? Number 3, follow through on your word. You are as good as your word. If I say I'm gonna work out 3 times a week and you actually start to hit 3 times a week and you do it for a month straight, what do you think that's gonna do to your confidence? If we believe that confidence is built from evidence, we can look back and say, I did this. Here's the proof. You literally cannot take it away from me. I mean, obviously, if you're being honest with your tracking. And so this is the program that we're actually developing for these guys. And I have a very simple 12-week program that helps guys build 4 habits. We have a reading habit, a sleeping habit, an exercise habit, and a professional habit, which is either school or job related. And notice I didn't put an eating habit in there because a lot of these guys' diets depend upon their parents' diet. So it's actually something that they don't have a ton of control over. It's something that would require a lot of change from like a family standpoint. So it's something that I've actually asked the guys not even to track. But those 4 habits, reading, exercise, professional, and sleeping habits, are what we have guys track over 12 weeks. Now, you might be saying, well, all right, so how's this going to change my life, right? Imagine tracking those habits for 12 weeks and looking back and looking at all of the evidence that you've built. Maybe you started to struggle on Fridays, or maybe you started to struggle in the beginning of the week. So you'll actually notice how to change that, right? And so then imagine what happens to your confidence after 2 weeks of tracking, after 1 week of tracking, after 2 months, after 3 months. Imagine who you might be. See, the key here is my goal as the creator of the Be That Guy program and all the stuff that I do with guys is not to help you be better in school, to help you be better in relationships, to help you make more money and all of these things. My job is to help you become a better you. Because you are attached to your school. You are attached to the money you make. You are attached to your relationships and your family. If you become a better man, a more disciplined man, a more confident man, a more emotionally intelligent man, what do you think is going to happen to all those other areas of your life? Because I can't go in and take the test for you. I can't go into your job and make the money for you. I can't say the things to your girlfriend and make her like you again. These are things that you have to figure out. And I believe that if you set yourself up to live a certain way, meaning here's the habits I want to do, and we start small, so then it's slow burn into something a little bit more intense and frequent. You do this over 2 weeks, over a month, over 2 months, 3 months. I believe that's how you build confidence. This is the exact thing that I did when I was 22 years old and felt like a loser, felt weak, didn't know what to do. And when I started meeting with Scott, I started tracking reading for 30 minutes a day. And the reason that I did this, I remember this, Tony Robbins told me to do this. Tony Robbins, I went to a mastermind event and he said, I would read for 30 minutes every day. That'll change your life. And so I literally bought a calendar and I wrote 30 on the whole freaking calendar. And I said, I'm going to read every single day, even weekends, for 30 minutes minimum. And I didn't even like reading at that time. And so I started reading. And I remember after the first month, I was like, wow, I got all 30 days. I remember after the second one, I got all 30 days. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what else can I track? I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing gratitude. Right? I started doing a little bit of gratitude after my uncle had passed away, yet I kind of had fallen off, so I decided to bring it back. So I started doing gratitude on my iPad, and so I started tracking that as well. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to track my exercise because it'll give me an extra mark on my calendar. So then I started tracking all of these things, and after 6 months, after a year, after 2 years, I can genuinely say that when I walk into a room, I'm confident no matter what. Because I know I've put in years of experience when it comes to the emotional intelligence training, when it comes to leadership training, when it comes to the habits that I'm building, exercise, right? I know that I've done it because I have years of proof that I've done it. And so when I go into these rooms or I talk to these guys or I'm on a podcast like this, I'm very confident with who I am because I just have a shit ton of evidence. And so a lot of these guys who want to improve their confidence and want to work on the discipline, it starts with the discipline because motivation is going to go out the window immediately, especially when that 5 a.m. alarm comes up and your bed is really warm and it's cold outside. That's where discipline comes in. And so how do you be more disciplined in those moments? Now that requires a lot of different frameworks and mindset shifts, yet the consistency is then repeating those decisions over and over and over again. Now here's the thing, right? What did we talk about earlier? Hey, confident guys do hard things. It's gonna be hard. That's the whole freaking point. We do hard things because we know it's going to build us into a better man, and we know that it's going to make us be a more confident man, and that is going to change our life forever. We have to do hard things. We have to. And so that's why, like, when I talk to these guys about discipline, and I put up this post a couple of weeks ago that was like, people say they want to be their best version of themselves, they want to, live their best life. It's like, do you realize that doing that is going to require a change, and a change is probably going to be something to improve yourself, and to improve yourself, there's probably going to be something hard in there. And so, like, this isn't just for guys, this is for everybody, right? If we want to improve our confidence, we have to actually, like, create the hard thing, right? Because the easy thing isn't that cool. It's not that rewarding, right? If somebody says, hey dude, I watched the whole season of Game of Thrones on Netflix, on HBO, I'd be like, cool. But if somebody was like, no, I actually traveled to where they filmed it and I made this really cool vlog, and I uploaded it to YouTube and I created this YouTube channel, and now I'm actually teaching people through a masterclass how to travel the world and create vlogs. Dude, it's been brutal, but man, it is so rewarding, and I'm building up a lot of evidence that I can do this. It's like, holy shit, it's like, tell me more about that, right? Like, that's the difference. And so this is a program that I'm starting to work guys through. And so if you are a guy and you want to build your confidence, it's a very simple program. We do group sessions with the guys who are in the program. I meet with you each month, and we just kind of get very specific on the discipline mindsets. Like I said, that's where like a little bit of the thinking is required, and then how to actually repeat those behaviors over and over and over again. And then after those 3 months, that's where your confidence is going to really start to kick up. All right, and it'll actually start to kick up, I personally believe, after 2 weeks, and then it goes to a month, and about 2 months, and 3 months. And so if you're a dude and you want to build that confidence and build that discipline, reach out to me on Instagram at DJ Liguori, and I'm actually building the whole page right now. And this is going to be kind of like our introductory program into the Be That Guy community, because frankly, you got to earn the right to be a part of this community, right? The guys in this group, they want to get better. They want to improve their discipline. They want to improve their confidence. And there might be guys who are completely okay with being average and being stressed and being anxious and being unhealthy. Great. Go do that. You're not for us. But for the guys who do want to do this, shoot me a message at DJ Liguori. Ask me about the discipline and confidence program, and we can hop on a call and I'll kind of explain how it works. So that's how I believe that you can improve your confidence. So real quick, I know we just covered a lot here, right? The wounded masculinity, the integration of both the masculine and the feminine energy, and how can we improve our confidence. If you guys got some value from today's episode, I just kind of just poured my heart out. had some notes. I didn't follow any of them. Share this episode with people on your Instagram story, right? If you're a mom, share it with your son. If you're a guy, share it with your mom. I want to just get this out to more guys because, like I said, I've had almost 600 guys message me over the past couple of weeks. Guys are dying for this. They want to be more disciplined. They want to be more confident, and they just don't know how. And I genuinely believe that the habits are the first place to start. Developing the skill of discipline and consistency leads to more confidence. And once we have that confidence, we can start to talk more about emotional intelligence and this balancing and integration of the energies. And so if you got some value out of today's episode, share it to as many platforms as you can. I'm just super grateful for anybody who gets value out of this. This stuff's really important to me because it's changed my life, and hopefully it can change yours too. So thank you guys so much for your time today. As I mentioned, go check out Abby's podcast. It was awesome. And until next time, keep being that guy, and we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you.